So let's talk about a disease you've probably heard of, typhoid. But we're going to call it by its broader name, enteric fever. This thing has been around for centuries, but believe it or not, it's still a massive public health problem all over the world. It's a really old enemy with a story that's still very much unfolding today.
And when I say a massive problem, what does that actually mean? Well, check out this number. We're talking about 11 to 21 million cases every single year. I mean, that's just a staggering amount of people. It really puts into perspective how widespread this threat still is.
All right, so what is this illness that's making millions of people sick? Let's zoom in and meet the tiny, microscopic culprit behind this fever that literally crosses borders.
Okay, so here's the deal. Enteric fever is kind of like a family name. The most famous member of that family is the bacterium Salmonella typhi. That's what causes what we all call typhoid fever. But it has these close cousins, the Salmonella paratyphi bacteria, that cause a similar, usually less severe illness. So you've got this whole nasty family of germs working together.
And how does it get around? Well, it's not pretty. It spreads when food or water gets contaminated with the waste of someone who's already infected. But here's the part that's absolutely crucial to understand. This is a human-only disease. It doesn't live in animals. We are the only hosts, the only reservoirs. Which means, yeah, we're the only reason it keeps spreading.
Okay, so what actually happens when one of these little bacteria gets inside your body? Oh, it's not just a minor infection. No, it's more like a full-on invasion. Let's follow this little intruder on its journey through the body.
It all starts with something you eat or drink. The bacteria get into your gut and invade the lining. Now you'd think, okay, immune system, do your thing. And it does try. These big immune cells called macrophages show up and just gobble up the bacteria. But here's the terrifyingly clever part. Instead of getting destroyed, Salmonella typhi actually starts multiplying inside the very cells meant to kill it. It turns our immune cells into a Trojan horse, hitching a ride through the bloodstream to set up shop in really important places like your liver, spleen, and even your bone marrow. Pretty sneaky, right?
So after about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, you start to feel awful. Headaches, chills, achy muscles, the usual stuff. But the really telltale sign of typhoid is this weird fever. It doesn't just shoot up, it climbs a little higher each day in this sort of stepladder pattern. And sometimes people get these faint pinkish spots on their chest and stomach. They're actually called rose spots.
Now, with symptoms like that, how did doctors know for sure it's typhoid and not something else? Well, this is where the medical detective work really begins. They've got to find that bacterial culprit, which is hiding deep inside the body.
So how do you actually find an invisible enemy that's taken over someone's organs? Yeah, it's not always easy.
Basically, doctors have two main tools in their toolbox. The first is a blood culture. This is where they take a sample of your blood and try to actually grow the bacteria in a lab. It's like catching the burglar in the act. Direct evidence. The other method is the Woodall test. This one looks for indirect clues, the antibodies that your body creates to fight the bacteria. And as you'll see, each one is useful in its own way.
And this really gets at the key difference. The blood culture, that's the gold standard. It's the best way to be sure, especially in the first week of the fever, because you're catching the bacteria red-handed. The Woodall test, on the other hand, works better after the first week, once your body has had a chance to build up those antibodies. The catch? It's not as reliable and can sometimes give you a false positive.
Okay, so the doctors have done their detective work, they've found the culprit, now the fight really begins. But here's the thing, fighting this tiny enemy has gotten a lot harder over the years.
I mean, for a long time, antibiotics were our silver bullet, a total game changer. They're the main weapon we have, and they turn this often fatal disease into something totally treatable. With the right antibiotics, fast, the mortality rate drops to less than 1%. Amazing, right?
Well, yes, but the bacteria are fighting back. And this timeline, it tells a really scary story. It's like an arms race. Back in the 70s, the bacteria started resisting our first-line antibiotics. So we developed new ones. By the late 80s, boom, multi-drug resistant strains showed up. We switched to another line of defense, and guess what? By the 90s, resistance to those started spreading. Which brings us to today, where we are dealing with what's called extensively drug-resistant, or XDR typhoid. We're talking strains that are resistant to nearly every antibiotic you can take by mouth. This is a massive, massive problem. And what makes this whole situation even more complicated is a problem that has a very famous face, Mary Mallon. You probably know her as Typhoid Mary. She's the classic example of an asymptomatic carrier. She worked as a cook,
felt perfectly fine but unknowingly infected more than 50 people and at least 3 of them died.
So what is a chronic carrier? It's someone who gets infected, gets better, but the bacteria never fully leaves their body. It just hangs out, often in their gallbladder. This person feels totally healthy, but they're still shedding bacteria in their waste, sometimes for years. They become these silent, walking sources of infection, which makes wiping out the disease in a community almost impossible.
This is why just treating sick people isn't enough. We have to stop it from spreading in the first place. And the answer is, well, it's prevention. We're talking about the basics: clean water to drink, proper sanitation systems, and just simple stuff like washing your hands. It's also about education, and of course using vaccines to protect people who are at high risk, like anyone traveling to a place where typhoid is common.
And all of this really leads us to one big final question. We've got bacteria that are getting smarter than our medicines. We've got millions of people who still don't have access to clean water. So you have to wonder, is this ancient foe, a disease we honestly thought we were on our way to beating, actually making a comeback? The answer to that, well, that really depends on how seriously we, as a global community, decide to fight it.